Welcome to MAGNUM Correctional Officers Recruit. Times are getting rough out there. On Venus, riots in the streets of Lohi. High above the Earth, Phenomenon City officials have begun lowering oxygen levels to as little as 11% in certain districts. And on Mars, the Inner City Technical Center has declared martial law. But now that you're here, recruit, there is nothing to worry about. With the recent blessing of the Hexarchy, MAGNUM Correctional Officers will have the streets and beltways cleared of looters, and if needs be, clear the system of those pesky demons those colonnades are propagating around. You and your fellow MAGNUM COs use non-lethal force whenever available to save as many citizens as possible, using lethal force humanely when given no other option. This training video will give you an idea on how to differentiate when and where to use lethal versus non-lethal force. We'll follow our newest officer, Kennet. Don't let his inexperience fool you though. Thanks to MAGNUM's rigorous training, we could drop any one of our officers to any operational site and they'll get the job done, whether it's stopping those riots on Lohi or restoring normalcy to Mars. Officer Kennet's first stop, he must detain an ex-ANCOM scientist spreading anti-ANCOM propaganda. Tracked to Mecta, in the Kitchen Business Center, our recruits have two available styles of training, with more offered to senior officers. Officer Kennet is a Phoenix Brigade recruit, trained in fast, agile combat wearing flame-retardant gear, specializing in energy weapons. Unfortunately, though all recruits are well-trained, lower and uninitiated ranks do not have access to the more advanced equipment Phoenix recruits are trained with, so Officer Kennet is issued a Hydra 24 with 74 rounds of ammunition and a bandage. As Kennet rides the dropship down to the kitchen dock, he's given a briefing by Jane, one of MAGNUM's intelligence agents, on what to expect after docking in the kitchen. Touching down, Kennet clears the rooms connected to the dock. Finding a med room, he takes all the meds he can carry. Later in a break room, he finds a weapon box with another Hydra, which he takes as a backup weapon. Kennet finds the elevator almost immediately. With a weapon box containing a Storm SMG, he takes the ammo out of his backup Hydra and leaves it in the box, seizing the Storm for evidence and using it as his primary weapon. Then he moves out to the hallway to clear the rest of the floor before descending. In the hallway, Kennet doesn't need to look far for some suspects. With them neutralized and detained, Kennet seizes their protective gear and searches for more suspects. Which, after searching the floor, he finds them hiding in a maintenance hallway. In detaining them, Kennet returns to the elevator, retrieving the ammo he left there, and with his back cleared, descends to the floor below. On the second floor, Officer Kennet runs into a group of 4 suspects. Neutralizing them with a few volleys from his Storm, he's able to seize their equipment, earning himself some better gear. Kennet has found the elevator, but the floor still isn't cleared, so he goes back to the other rooms, finding a suspect and an industrial AR. He sends a burst their way, neutralizing the suspect and the AR in another volley. With the floor clear, Officer Kennet makes his way back to the elevator and descends to the 3rd floor. In the 3rd floor hallway, the perps upstairs must have triggered an alarm because Kennet is ambushed in the elevator hallway. Thanks to his robust training from MAGNUM Correctional Officers, he neutralizes them without much trouble. Down the hall, Kennet finds a suspect hiding in a break room behind an explosive barrel, which unfortunately explodes as Officer Kennet fires upon him. As the man is violently torn to shreds by the explosion, it causes an ecolapse. While most would run screaming, Officer Kennet's training takes over. He knows exactly what to do if a Quasimorph were ever to tear its way into our reality, which would be to make it very full of holes, but thanks to the explosion spreading fire everywhere, all he has to do is stand and watch as it burns. But while watching, another suspect enters the room and opens up with an inaccurate fire on our officer, causing another explosion. Kennet neutralizes the suspect with his own and continues clearing the 3rd floor. In a maintenance hallway, Kennet finds the remaining 2 suspects on this floor and placing them in custody. He finds the last room on this floor, revealing the elevator to the final floor. Ambushed again in the hall outside the elevator room, our officer must put his safety above those who would do him harm, shooting the barrel closest to him, causing a chain reaction, setting the whole hallway ablaze as he moves into another room to escape the flames. In the next room, Officer Kennet finds a suspect and neutralizes him, unfortunately causing the Quasimorph to ecolapse, tearing the suspect apart. Kennet destroys the demon. He continues to a loading dock, finding another suspect, and after subduing him, returns to the elevator hall. Finding the suspects Quispy, he seizes their equipment and continues to the final room, where Officer Kennet finds the scientist and leader. But he's heavily armed and extremely dangerous, as Kennet soon finds out. Luckily, the protective gear he seized from the suspects is of good quality. He makes a tactical retreat, taking cover behind a concrete half-wall, where he returns fire on the suspect. Once Kennet has the suspect neutralized and seized all of his equipment, he calls in backup and returns to the top floor to meet with the responding units. Now, that wasn't bad for a rookie's first op. To be honest, I think that's what you should aspire to. That's exactly how you'd want your first job to go. Neutralize non-lethally when you can, but when you can't, make sure they're not a threat. Let's take a look at another job Officer Kennet completed. His fifth op on the orbit of Citadel 1, the mining station. Well, in Photosphere 17, ex-RealWare agents are producing combat stimulants marked for RealWare agents only. So Officer Kennet must neutralize and detain the suspects producing the drugs, as well as find evidence to give to RealWare for the impending trial. After touching down and clearing the connected rooms of suspects, Officer Kennet begins his infiltration, but he's ambushed by 6 perps. Kennet is able to neutralize and detain all of the suspects, with only minor injuries. Kennet was injured in the fight, but didn't slow him down. He made sure all the suspects were subdued before attending to any injuries and seizing their equipment, then moves to clear out to the rest of the floor. Finding a storage room connected to a small ventilation room, there our officer engages with 3 suspects and a RealWare combat AR. After neutralizing the first suspect, Kennet switches to his crash shotgun to destroy the AR as fast as possible, killing the other 2 suspects. Officer Kennet was hit in the head during the exchange, but luckily he was wearing a RealWare Commando helmet. Get yours today for the low price of $599.99, or in 6 easy payment installments of 99.99 credits per day. RealWare is not responsible for any injury received if the helmet does not provide adequate protection or malfunctions resulting in injury. In the last room, Officer Kennet runs into more resistance, initially running into 3 suspects. He takes them out with a few volleys of buckshot from the crash he seized earlier, and is he glad he did, with it saving his life more than a few times. So take notes, recruits. It's always good to have your service pistol or rifle, but a good shotgun can be the difference between life and death. Suspects apprehended on this floor, Kennet moves to the elevator and on to the next floor. On the next floor, a suspect runs at him with a hot combat axe, and after 2 bursts from the crash, falls to the floor. As Kennet reloads, a suspect and an AR round the corner. Kennet, realizing he's in a bad spot, makes a tactical retreat back to the elevator room. Where there's better cover, he locks the door and waits for them to come to him. When the suspect breaks down the door, Kennet opens fire with 2 bursts from his Storm SMG, sparkling a fire in the hall, igniting the suspect, burning him to death. Unfortunately, AR is a machine, and it walks through the fire, set on killing Officer Kennet, but he's got other ideas, switching to a shotgun, dumping 9 shells into the bot. Moving up to the door, there's another AR in the hall. Kennet attempts to fall back into cover, but takes a burst from the bot, injuring his arm as he jumps into cover, returning fire and demolishing the AR in 3 shells. After clearing the room of burned up suspects, Kennet runs face first into another suspect, earning himself an upgrade to his shotgun. As Kennet moves into a maintenance hall, there's a suspect holding a siege-style angle on the door. He hits Kennet in the chest. With his hammer-on single shot, he quickly switches and fires 4 shells into the suspect, allowing a forest to rip its way into our reality. After falling back to administer first aid, Kennet enters the hallway shooting another suspect, causing him to explode into another forest. Seeing that, he checks his quasimorphosis meter that all recruits are given once they've proven themselves to be effective operators, which it's reached 416 at this point. He readies himself to fight the demons after they've taken out a few suspects. As the battle settles, the remaining forest returns its attention to Officer Kennet. As he lumbers toward him on injured legs, he dumps 12 shells of flechette into the forest. It pops like a pimple, and Kennet is able to search and seize any equipment the suspects left behind, then makes his way to the elevator to the final floor. Final floor, Kennet takes cover in the elevator hall after spotting a suspect, not waiting to get shot at first. Kennet fires 3 flechette shells at the perp, with the final shell causing enough damage for a forest to spawn out of it. He loads Dragon Volley, setting the forest alight, and spreading the fire throughout the hall before reloading Buckshot and popping the forest. After the fires died down, he enters the hall, spotting another suspect, and dives for cover, sending 3 shells toward the suspect, falling to the ground as an AR starts making its way down the hall. Kennet begins firing down the hall, and after 5 shells, the AR stops moving. Kennet sends 2 more shells down the hall just in case, and checks his quasi-meter, reading 713 before moving up to check on the suspect, taking his ammo and detaining him. Looking on some suspects down the hall, and seeing that his quasi-meter is at 818, he remembers not to let it reach 1000, so he cuts open a quasi-morphic idol and sees that the meter is reduced to 218. Just as he breathes a sigh of relief, he's ambushed by a combat AR. Jumping into cover, he sends 6 shells and destroys the bot. Finding the PCP with evidence of their plan to produce and distribute realware products, now that he has the evidence, Kennet is able to pull back to the floor above and wait for backup to catch the remaining suspects. That will be all from Phoenix Brigade Officer Kennet. We'll now be taking a look at the other training option the recruits have to choose from, and my personal style of training, the Tunnel Rat. Tunnel Rats are the slower, more methodical approach, taking their time to really search their suspect for any hidden items that could prove useful on an op or as evidence. We'll now follow Officer Mirza Aishatu, a proven rat with 20 missions under her belt. We'll be taking a look at her 21st operation for Magnum. For this op, for Aishatu, will be on the moon. There, the orbital port and Cap Dogma was taken over by a revolutionary sect of the Church of Revolution. The Church explained that the leader has named themselves the new Pope and cut off all communication with the Church. The Church fears this large sect may have more than one base of operations. Magnum has been contracted to recover an electronic communication device with the names of other sect members. Officer Aishatu geared up, she enters the dropship, and Jane sends her a brief on what to expect in the base. Opening the door to the base, Officer Aishatu is met with sleeping acolytes. Stepping into the room, she sees a suspect in cover. She shoots the barrel and runs out of the room, locking the door behind her, letting them burn. She seizes any functioning equipment from the bodies and continues clearing the complex. Aishatu comes across 4 suspects after entering the room they're in, neutralizing 1, but causing 2 of the suspects to be torn apart by Quasimorphs who ripping their way into real space. The Quasis open the door and run at her, causing them to get a couple blasts from her shotgun. She seizes the suspect's weapons and ammo, returning to her search for the communication device. Entering the room, Aishatu is shot twice by a suspect. Returning fire, she sees another and moves up, attempting to get into cover. Taking out the most armored suspect, she turns her attention to the other 2. Just as Quasimorphs recruit them, the moon is very dangerous in the way of Quasimorphs. The veil seems to be much thinner on the moon, allowing the Quasis ample opportunity to tear their way through. After one bleeds out, another suspect shoots the last Quasi. As Officer Aishatu reloads her Taiga, moves to the left and puts the suspect down to again have a Quasimorph rip its way through the holes our officer placed into it. After taking his weapon and protective equipment, she moves on to the elevator, continuing her search on the next floor. Leaving the elevator, our officer is stabbed by an acolyte. We rush through the door from the hallway. After shelling out some buckshot, she continues to the hallway, running into 3 more, neutralizing 2 of them and spawning another Quasi, pumping it full of lead, and continuing on looking for the device. Entering the room to the left of the elevator, there's blood everywhere from Quasimorphs bursting out of suspects. With the Quasimeter being at 428, a Quasi moves toward her, earning it a few shells. With an AR behind it, she manages to destroy it without any more injuries, seizing the equipment and making use of a Bishop sniper rifle to conserve shotgun ammo. To the right of the elevator, Officer Aishatu enters a room, finding suspects in a battle with Quasimorph. With the meter nearing 600 and every act of violence and death raising it ever higher, Aishatu must quickly find the device or drugs and alcohol to buy herself some more time. With the Quasimorphs winning the battle, she throws in an incendiary grenade and locks the door, letting them burn. After breaking down the door and finding the Quasis gone, but not forgotten, she leaves to the elevator to the final floor. Stepping out of the elevator, she's again rushed by an acolyte. An Equus hijacks its bones and forms itself, earning 2 bursts from Officer Aishatu's taiga, and although she found some morphine and vodka, it didn't lower the Quasimeters too much, so Quasis are still able to spontaneously burst from unsuspecting suspects. And they do seem to be bursting out of every other suspect. With gunfire sounding off throughout the 3rd floor, she tries to make her way to the device, which Jane has pinged on her map. She makes an admittedly rookie mistake, getting boxed in by the Quasis. But even veterans make mistakes, and she manages to blast her way out, but just barely. Opening the door to the closet, where the device is being held, she picks it up and immediately calls for backup, with the Quasimeter being 853. She runs back to the elevator, finding 3 Equisi blocking her way, blasting them with her trusty taiga. She limps to the elevator with the meter nearly maxing out at 922. I hope you recruits are learning something from this footage, because we're almost out of time, with just enough for one more op from Officer Aishatu on Geist, a ghost asteroid turned outpost to the outer solar system. Built by the Dilthy Corporation, with 3 colonies on the rock, Coreward NG had contracted us to take back Schwerin, the main port of the asteroid, from the control of the pirates of the Unchained Belt, and to destroy any caches of weapons that they'd shipped in. Aishatu gears up, trading her taiga for a Mantis M3 SMG with rubber bullets for a higher chance to keep any suspect shot alive, and a Zeus stun baton to go fully non-lethal. She jumps into the dropship with a brief from Jane and jumps down to Schwerin. Officer Aishatu sneaks up on the suspect, neutralizing him with the Mantis and going to detain and seize any equipment. An industrial AR opens the door, forcing Aishatu to switch to the Zeus, stunning the AR before destroying it with another smash. In the room, there's another 2 suspects and an AR. After being injured, she manages to neutralize the suspects. After detaining and seizing their equipment, Aishatu is ambushed by more suspects, with 2 of them being beaten into submission with her Zeus, and 3 shot with her Mantis. One of them is damaged enough to have a Quasimorph rip its way into reality through his contusions. Don't ask me how that happened. Those gremlins are weird. Causing the suspects to switch their attention to the Gremmerograt. But it rushes Aishatu, getting a swat of 12,000 volts, killing the gremlin Quasi before turning her attention back to the suspects, detaining them and going on her way. Going the other way, she comes across 3 suspects and 2 ARs, throwing a stun grenade through the door. Once it goes off, she enters, smacking the suspects with the Zeus. One of them must have had a heart attack,
I'm having chest pain!
because it spawns another gremlin, giving it a whack. She turns her attention back to the AR, overloading its circuits, and continuing through the complex. Running across 2 suspects, she takes one out with her Mantis without the other one hearing. Walking up and detaining him, she checks what was behind door number 1, finding 3 suspects and an AR, throwing an incendiary grenade at the group and locking the door. With all the commotion, the other suspect comes back around the corner, just in time for him to earn 12,000 volts. The burning suspects manage to knock down the door. She watches as another suspect sprints through the flames at her before falling as a gremlin bursts into the flames. It goes after the burning AR, destroying it as another enters the flames, smacking the gremlin, managing to kill it. The AR lumbers at Aishatu, who overcharges it when it gets close. Moving on, walking through a medical room, looking for the elevator, 2 more suspects with their pet AR cross her path as she attempts to leave the room. Shooting a suspect spawns another gremlin, so she backs up into the medical room, only to be ambushed by another suspect behind her. Shooting him with her mantis, and with her quasi-meter being at 420, spawns a gremlin yet again. As an AR lumbers into the room, the gremlin nicks an oil line, the AR topples over. The gremlin charges her, hitting her. She hits back with her Zeus, stunning the gremlin, before putting it down for good. She makes her way to the elevator and continues to the 2nd floor. Attempting to enter a storage room, Officer Aishatu finds 5 suspects and is immediately shot by one guarding the door. She throws in an incendiary grenade and mows down 3 of them with her mantis, now regretting wasting that grenade. She locks the door, hoping everyone else burns, but there's one suspect able to break down the door, earning him a burst from her mantis. Earning her a fresh gremlin to kill with another burst. Now down to regular bullets, she seizes any equipment and moves on through the complex. In another storage room, Aishatu throws an incendiary grenade into a ventilation room, taking a shell as she steps out to lock the door. Turning her attention to the other door in the room, right as she's about to open it, a gremlin hits the button and she sends a burst through it. Stepping in, finding a pile of suspects. Another gremlin is in there having a Christmas feast. It charges her with her Zeus out of battery. She hits it with 2 bursts from her mantis. With a Q meter at 626, she decides it's time to crack open her alcohol package she has, drinking a bottle of cognac whiskey and 2 whole bottles of vodka. Recruits, I'd recommend you start drinking now if you want the tolerance you'll need to clear a long op like this. Through the 2nd burned room, our officer finds the cafeteria filled with suspects. Shooting the one guarding the door with a shotgun she seized from the suspect, spawns a gremlin. That's right, recruits, even that much alcohol wasn't enough to stop the quasis from stepping through that plug hole, so she shuts the door and lets it run its course. If the gremlin wins, great. If the suspects win, even better. Gremlin lost, fortunately, as she's able to neutralize 3 suspects and destroy 4 ARs. Seizing any suspicious equipment and weapons, she returns to the main hall and search for more suspects and the all-important elevator. Down another hallway, Officer Aishatu finds a suspect over the body of another, and after putting a slug in him, is ambushed by another. Quickly neutralizing him, she looks through their equipment, finding more ammo for her mantis. Entering a factory floor, she finds 2 ARs and opens fire on them with her mantis, destroying one, but before she can get the other with it, it jams. Sir Aishatu takes some buckshot out of the pockets of the suspect from the hall and loads up her shotgun, as she's shot from behind by a suspect coming out of some maintenance halls, and shot again by a suspect on the factory floor. So she performs a tactical retreat to cover in the hall, and starts blasting, killing a suspect and destroying an AR before performing some first aid as another suspect steps through the door, only to be clotheslined by some buckshot. After taking the rest of the shotgun ammo, she moves to the factory room. Finding another cafeteria absolutely filled with suspects, shooting one causes a gremlin to be lit up by every person in the room. As the suspects move to the door, Aishatu throws in its stun grenade, shutting the door, and it goes off. Opening the door, blasts away 3 more of the suspects, spawning another gremlin, which takes care of the last suspect. Before getting sent back to wherever it came from. Back through the maintenance hall, she finds the elevator to the 3rd floor. Out of the elevator, Aishatu checks a weapon box, finding an energy pistol, taking the batteries for her use. She enters the hallway and gets into a battle. Geez, now that that's over, she seizes any equipment and sees that the quasi-meter has doubled to 636. But while looking through the suspect's things, finding an eye of Karak from a gremlin and placing it in her mouth, chewing, it's like she can see through walls, visualizing the layout of the third floor, as well as any nearby quasis. After killing the gremlin she saw a room over, she searches the bodies, finding a Ripper assault pistol, trading it with her FN4. She goes back the way she came, to a library, finding 3 gremlins and a pile of gore. After a few shells, the gremlins are gone, leaving a room with her to search. Returning to the north side of the floor into another library, she finds 4 industrial ARs and rips her way through them, searching the room, only finding another bottle of vodka before making her way to the elevator to the final floor. Exiting the elevator room, Officer Aishatu enters another library, finding 3 suspects with 2 bunched up. She throws a Molotov in the corner and backs out of the room, and the other suspect not on fire rushes her. After 2 shells, she trades a Ripper for his war crash. After downing 2 bottles of vodka to keep the gremlins at bay, moves through the library, taking some ciggies.
500 cigarettes.
Opening the door to 4 suspects, she throws in her last Molotov and shuts the door. After some cook time, she opens the door to the room still burning. A few gremlins crawling around, she puts them down without much fuss, and moves on through the smoldering room to an armament factory where the pirates are holding a cache of weapons. Shooting a few shells of buckshot, cooks off a chain reaction, blowing out the weapons. On the way back, she finds a secret door in the bathroom, leading to the last cache of weapons, destroying that again with God's Gauge, with low ammunition and a busted-up armor. After such a long operation, Officer Aishatu runs back to the elevator and calls in backup. Hey, thanks for making it all the way through my video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Starting paramedic school here soon, so the videos are going to be much slower than they even are right now, so bear with me. Do me a favor, like and subscribe, share, and have a wonderful rest of your days.